The country is angry, and rightly so. And not just because these attacks happened, not just because lots of people were sent to prison because their expression of anger was then characterized as inciting violence as a result of information that was leaked. And as it turns out, not from within the UK, from outside the UK. And much of that seems to have been confusing anyway. But also because it appears that lots of information was withheld. And as I read from this report here, quoting Nigel Farage, he says that police were guilty and Keir Starmer was guilty of a gigantic cover-up over these murders. Now, of course, this is reporting on what Nigel Farage says, and for legal reasons. This is not me making a statement of fact that any of those things happened, but that is what Nigel Farage says. That's what his view is, and he believes that these riots would not have happened had the public been told the truth. So if you like my personal views on these things, within certain limits, so I don't get myself into any trouble, please do subscribe to the channel. We're here on Black Belt Secrets. Now, if you want to understand what I think the term of sentence will be for this monster here, check out my main channel, my Black Belt Barrister video. I'll link below. Go and watch that as well. But you'll recall as well that Nigel Farage was even prevented from asking questions in Parliament. That's because of a rule we call sub judice, meaning even in Parliament, if questions are asked that might jeopardise a trial, those obviously can't be asked because they don't want it to jeopardise a trial. Now, there was specific Attorney General warnings on reporting and commentary and media commentary, even social media commentary on this case before he pleaded guilty, of course, so as not to taint the evidence in any way so that it wouldn't be able to be used in the trial. The trial, we understand, was due to commence tomorrow and to last a long time, but as a surprise twist of events, he changed his pleas to guilty. If you don't know what this is all about, watch my other video and come back and watch this one. But it gets worse, because it turns out Nigel Farage has told The Telegraph that shortly after these murders, he was told that Axel Rudakabana had been expelled from school for possession of a knife at the age 13. It seems he was known to authorities. He'd been reported several times. And even his father, shortly before this attack, had prevented him from getting in a taxi and going off to his old school. Presumably, he had similar plans. Now, what I don't accept, I stand to be corrected, but what I don't accept is this claim by police or the authorities in general that this was not terror related, because he was found with terror materials. He was found making ricin and the training material from Al Qaeda, and yet they've refused to categorize this as anything to do with terror because they haven't found a motive, or they haven't found a definitive motive. And according to, again, Nigel Farage, I believe this is still quoting Nigel Farage here, said that there'd been a gigantic cover-up from day one. The authorities knew very quickly, about the expulsion from school, the ricin making, the Al Qaeda material, yet they refused to categorize this as terror-related for fear of the reaction that there might have been from the public. Now, the irony here is, and the Streisand effect would have it, that that's exactly what happened. We had this reaction from the public because people were angry about it. Now, people generally will not be saying things to incite violence and hatred, and far from it for me forever to do such a thing. I always try to give a balanced view on these things, as I would have done had I really felt I was able to offer any commentary on this case as it went through. But obviously, I am certainly restricted from doing so. The general public are restricted from doing so for fear that it would compromise the trial, and that is set out in the Contempt of Court Act. Starmer admitted here that the British state has failed the victims of this offence, describing this as a moment of trauma for the nation, and said there are grave questions to answer as to how the state failed in its ultimate duty to protect these victims. Britain, he says, will rightly demand answers. We will leave no stone unturned in that pursuit, he says. Well, I think I can speak for pretty much the majority, if not the whole of the UK, to say, yes, everybody will want answers, but not just as to how this failure happened, but as other commentators have said, I think people will want to know who knew what and when, and accordingly, why that wasn't then told to the public. Because as Nigel Farage said, the public can handle the truth and the transparency. If people don't want to know about it, they won't read the news. And when it comes to a jury trial, on the one hand, I'll try to give you a balanced view here, even though we're on secrets. Do subscribe if you think you're on my main channel. We're on secrets here. Please do subscribe so we can grow this channel as well. You get my raw views here. Even though I do give you both sides, and I do encourage you to observe the rules, not to taint a trial, not to make comments, share anything that could compromise a trial, etc. I do believe that the general public can handle true information and real reports. I accept that false information, misinformation, disinformation, and there are subtle differences between the two. You could be misinformed. You've been given the wrong information. You can be giving disinformation, like deliberately giving someone the wrong information. But if the information is correct, and this is why it's all the more important that the correct information is given by the authorities, what they know, when they know it. And I do believe that when we get to a jury trial, I've got mixed views on jury trials, as many of you probably have. But when we get to a jury trial, the judge will make it very clear that the jury is to disregard anything that they've heard in the news, social media, their friends' discussion. They are directed not to research the case. They are directed specifically to only consider the evidence presented to them in the case, in the trial, in court, while it's going on. And if we trust the jury system in general, and if we trust that the jury system is fair, and we want to retain the right to trial by jury, and for the avoidance of doubt, anything that is an indictable offence, meaning it can be tried on indictment in the Crown Court, which obviously excludes summary only cases which can only go to the Magistrates' Court. The others can go to the Crown Court. It's either by the court's choice, where the Magistrates' Court declines jurisdiction, or you can elect Crown Court trial. We have the right to trial by jury. That is one of the Magna Carta remnants that survives today. The right to be tried by a jury of your peers. If we trust that system, and if we want to retain that system, quite rightly we have to protect and limit any effect on that trial, any prejudice within that trial, the likelihood that the jury will be swayed by incorrect evidence, misinformation, etc. But at the same time, if we want to retain that jury system, and we trust that jury system, we should also be able to trust official reports from the authorities as to what they know and when they know it, and contemporaneously, as and when they know it. If they discovered, which they did, if they discovered these toxins and the training materials at the time and everything else, and we discovered all of the other facts about this individual at the time, I can personally see no reason why the public can't be told those things. If they're official reports, official facts, etc., so long as they go through a vetting report process from government, by being open and transparent with the public, I believe that would limit the public reaction that we did see in the summer. I think we saw that reaction, and please don't misunderstand, violent disorder is wrong, riot is wrong. A lot of the actions there was wrong, and people have been going to prison for it. I do think that people have been pleading guilty to things that they perhaps should have pleaded not guilty to, and perhaps eventually they would have been found not guilty, but they've pleaded guilty to those things and perhaps shouldn't have done. But I think if as Nigel Farage says here, if there was this withholding of information and it was instead not withheld and the government was open and transparent about it already, I think that would have limited the reaction in the summer. I genuinely believe that. But the question now is, will we ever find out the full truth? Lots of people are now saying that we may not ever now hear the full truth of everything that happened. And I think we are entitled to that. I think it is a failure, as Keir Starmer says, it is a failure by the state. Now, again, don't misunderstand. If any of those in the services or the police or any other emergency service watch or the security services happen to watch my video, please don't take this as I think that you are a complete failure in all sense. Obviously, I don't. I understand, and I think other people watching this video should understand that there are a great number of things going on at all times that people simply don't know about. I came across this firsthand when I did my stint with the voluntary police as a special constable for 3 years or so, some more than 25 years ago now. And when you first get that police radio, and every police officer will know this, every security services officer will know this, but when you first get ears on that system and you hear what's going on around you, every few seconds, ping, there's a robbery, ping, there's a really serious offence, and ping, there's a burglary, ping, there's something else. Literally every few seconds, there's something else going on. And this is in your area. You think you're safe in your area. I don't want to spook anybody, but there is always something going on in your area, wherever you are, and it's getting worse in recent years. So all of these things go on at all times. And obviously when they are much more severe, it's the security services that are dealing with it, and they prevent so many more of these things than you could possibly imagine. I imagine, because sometimes we get information as to how many of these threats that they've stopped, etc. And that is not going to be the full picture. So don't take this, either general public or those in the services, don't take this as me saying you're a complete failure. But in this specific case, this sense here, it was a very unfortunate but catastrophic series of events that led to this failure. Because he's been reported many times. I think the general public need and deserve to know what it was that led to this ultimate failure. As I say, this, as it says here, Nigel Farage suspected that he was known to the authorities. He said, I was pretty certain from what I've been told that this was a terror-related attack. I wanted to ask those questions in Parliament about what they knew about him, but my rights of parliamentary privilege were taken away and I was not allowed to say anything, which is extraordinary. It is extraordinary, and the extraordinary nature of it was to prevent it from derailing the trial, to prevent any possibility of an unfair trial which could ultimately lead to an appeal which would quash the conviction, which would be ultimately invariably worse than what has happened today with him pleading guilty, and he will now face a life sentence. If you want to know more about that life sentence, check my other video below. But as I say, I think this has been a huge failure, and the public deserve to know the truth. Those are my personal thoughts on it. Obviously, you need to listen to any official announcements and take those for what they are. But let me know your thoughts below, of course. And as with any other ongoing trial, again, standard warning applies. You need to be careful what you say so that you're not held in contempt yourself for jeopardizing any ongoing case or trial. But please do subscribe if you like some free-flowing thoughts. None of this is scripted. None of this is planned. This is all off the top of my head, what I think about it, my reaction to these things. I think there is a lot more going on than we are told. I think a lot of people knew a lot of things that they didn't say, haven't yet said, and I think the public deserve to know the truth. Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.